In this episode, we move into a part of cybersecurity that is sometimes harder than the technical concepts because it deals with people, power, and consequences. Ethics and professional judgment matter most when decisions are messy, meaning the right choice is not simply a matter of applying a control or following a checklist. Messy situations show up when priorities conflict, when information is incomplete, when pressure is high, or when doing the easy thing would be unethical even if it is convenient. The GISF exam at a foundational level expects you to recognize the difference between what is possible and what is appropriate, and to understand that security work carries responsibility. The goal here is not to turn you into a philosopher, but to give you a clear, practical mindset for choosing actions that protect people and the organization while maintaining integrity. When you can reason ethically under pressure, you make better security decisions, and you also protect your own credibility. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyber.Author.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. Start with a simple idea. Ethics is about choosing what is right, not just what is allowed. Something can be technically possible and even legal in a narrow sense, but still unethical if it harms others unnecessarily or violates trust. In cybersecurity, trust is a core currency because organizations handle data that belongs to customers, employees, and partners. People expect that their information will be used for legitimate purposes and protected from misuse. When security professionals have access to sensitive systems and data, they must treat that access as a privilege, not an entitlement. Misusing access, even out of curiosity, undermines trust and can cause harm. Ethical behavior includes respecting privacy, limiting access to what is necessary, and avoiding actions that could expose or manipulate data without a legitimate purpose. Professional judgment is the skill of making good choices when rules do not provide a clear answer. Policies and procedures help, but they cannot cover every edge case. For example, you might discover a misconfiguration that exposes sensitive data, and you must decide how to report it, who to notify, and how urgently to act. You might be asked to share information with someone who claims they need it, but you are not sure they are authorized. You might face pressure to approve a risky change because a business deadline is looming. In these moments, professional judgment means weighing risk, impact, and ethics rather than acting impulsively. On the exam, questions about judgment often ask what the most appropriate action is, not what is technically possible. One of the most important ethical principles in security is least privilege, which means people and systems should have only the access they need to perform their roles. Least privilege is partly a technical design principle, but it is also an ethical stance because it reduces the chance of misuse and limits harm when mistakes occur. Giving someone broad access just because it is convenient increases risk and can lead to abuse or accidents. Ethical professionals resist the temptation to grant excessive access, even if someone asks for it urgently. They look for safer ways to meet the business need, such as granting temporary access or using approved workflows for access requests. This principle protects both the organization and the individual because it reduces the chance that someone is blamed for misuse of access they never should have had. Another foundational ethical concept is confidentiality in the human sense, not just the technical sense. Security work often involves learning about incidents, vulnerabilities, and mistakes that could embarrass individuals or harm the organization if mishandled. Ethical professionals treat that information carefully and share it only with those who need to know to address the risk. This does not mean hiding issues or avoiding accountability. It means communicating responsibly, focusing on facts, and avoiding gossip or unnecessary disclosure. For example, if an employee falls for a phishing email, the ethical response is to address the training gap and improve defenses, not to shame the individual publicly. This mindset supports a healthier security culture where people report problems early rather than hiding them out of fear. Ethics also intersects with honesty, especially when communicating risk. One of the most harmful behaviors in security is exaggerating threats to gain attention or budget. Another harmful behavior is minimizing risks to avoid work or avoid conflict. Ethical professionals aim for accurate, evidence-based communication. They explain uncertainty openly when information is incomplete and avoid making claims they cannot support. In messy situations, the truth may be uncomfortable, such as admitting that the organization has a major vulnerability or that an incident may have occurred. But truthful communication is essential for informed decision-making. On the exam, the best answer in ethics questions often involves transparency and escalation through proper channels rather than secrecy or manipulation. Conflicts of interest can also create ethical challenges. A conflict of interest exists when personal benefit could influence professional decisions. For example, if a security professional recommends a vendor because of a personal relationship rather than because it is the best choice, that undermines fairness and may increase risk. Another example might be using insider knowledge to gain personal advantage. Ethical behavior requires recognizing these conflicts and avoiding them, often by disclosing the situation and stepping back from decision-making when necessary. In cybersecurity, even the appearance of a conflict can damage trust. Professional judgment includes protecting your credibility by ensuring decisions are based on objective criteria and organizational benefit, not personal gain. Let's talk about responsible behavior during incident response, because incidents are inherently messy. When a potential breach is detected, there may be pressure to act quickly, but speed without discipline can destroy evidence or worsen damage. Ethical incident response involves following established procedures, preserving evidence, and documenting actions. It also involves respecting privacy and limiting access to incident data to those who need it to investigate. Another ethical responsibility is to avoid retaliatory actions against suspected attackers, such as hacking them back. Retaliation can be illegal, can harm innocent parties, and can escalate the situation. The ethical path is to focus on containment, recovery, and proper reporting. Exam questions may test whether you recognize that the correct response is to work through authorized channels, not to take personal action. Privacy is another area where ethics and judgment matter, especially because security and privacy can sometimes feel in tension. Security monitoring may involve collecting logs and observing user activity to detect threats. Ethical monitoring focuses on legitimate security purposes and uses the minimum necessary data. It includes clear policies about what is monitored and appropriate safeguards to prevent misuse of monitoring data. Ethical professionals do not use monitoring access to satisfy curiosity or to surveil individuals without cause. They also understand that privacy expectations vary by context, but the guiding principle is respect for individuals and transparency about practices. On the exam, when questions involve monitoring or data collection, the best answers often emphasize authorized purpose, minimal collection, and appropriate oversight. Pressure from leadership or business deadlines is a classic source of messy decisions. You might be asked to approve a system launch even though a vulnerability remains unpatched, or you might be asked to delay reporting a potential incident to avoid negative publicity. Professional judgment means explaining the risk clearly and recommending an ethically sound path, even if it is unpopular. This does not mean you always say no. It means you present options, including mitigations and the consequences of proceeding. Sometimes a business may accept risk, but that acceptance should be informed and documented, not forced through silence or misrepresentation. Ethical professionals protect the organization by ensuring decisions are made with full awareness of consequences. This is a key theme in governance and risk management questions. Another aspect of ethics is respecting intellectual property and legal boundaries. In cybersecurity, people sometimes encounter proprietary information, restricted software, or confidential data during research or testing. Ethical behavior means not copying, distributing, or using that information improperly. It also means following rules for authorized testing and not performing scans or exploitation against systems without permission. Even if your intentions are to help, unauthorized actions can create harm and legal exposure. This principle reinforces that security work must be authorized and accountable. For exam purposes, if a question asks what you should do when you discover a vulnerability in someone else's system, the ethical answer involves responsible disclosure through appropriate channels, not exploiting it or publicizing it irresponsibly. Ethical judgment improves when you use a consistent decision approach. When faced with a messy situation, identify who could be harmed, what obligations exist, what evidence supports the decision, and what the least harmful effective action is. Consider whether you have authority to act or whether you must escalate. Document your reasoning and actions, because documentation protects both the organization and you. This approach helps you avoid impulsive decisions driven by fear, anger, or pressure. It also aligns with the broader security principle of integrity, not just of data, but of professional conduct. The exam will often reward answers that involve escalation, documentation, and adherence to authorized processes, because those behaviors reflect ethical professionalism. To conclude, ethics and professional judgment are essential in cybersecurity because many situations involve uncertainty, conflicting priorities, and high consequences. Ethical professionals treat access as a privilege, respect privacy, communicate honestly, avoid conflicts of interest, and act within authorized boundaries. Professional judgment means making disciplined choices when policies do not provide perfect guidance, especially during incidents or under pressure. The best decisions protect people and the organization while preserving trust and integrity. If you carry one decision rule forward, let it be this. When a security decision feels messy, choose the action that is authorized, transparent, least harmful, and most aligned with protecting confidentiality, integrity, and availability without sacrificing honesty.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.